The term synthetic drug refers to a new type of drug on the market that has been created to skirt existing laws on illicit drugs. Thousands of psychoactive compounds are regulated by the law of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. However, in creating synthetic drugs, manufacturers alter the chemical structure of an illegal drug, modifying it to create an analog or derivative of that drug, to essentially make it quote-unquote legal. Synthetic drug manufacturers are devious in marketing their goods. This is known. Furthermore, it's also known that synthetic drugs induce a variety of side effects which can vary from person to person, often lack of pain response, hallucinations, and a severely hindered judgment. I don't know how much of those facts and statistics are relevant to me and what happened to me, but I need answers. Answers to dangerous questions. Questions I shouldn't be asking. I work nights. I've only ever worked nights at Sunshine America, a dingy 24/7 gas station situated in the slums of downtown, and I don't work there anymore. I had a pretty fucked up experience there. To set the stage, it was a typical April night. Pitch black as I rolled into the parking lot. And for the most part, but for some unexpected rain, everything went predictably. Counted my cash, double-checked the lotto numbers, made coffee, and then bought myself a Monster and a bag of corn nuts for the night and pulled out my laptop to start killing time. I usually would free write during my shifts, and I'd text whoever was up. Eventually, my girlfriend went to bed and I had no one to text or talk to. I decided to hit up my buddy Mike. He worked nights too. We talked for a bit while I tried to fight off my writer's block. I had a hell of a headache though, which didn't exactly summon inspiration. At one point in the night, a truck rolled into the lot. I don't remember seeing it come in. Rather, it was just there when I looked out the window. I seldom take notice of a car actually driving into the station unless they have a shitty muffler or a ridiculously loud bass. This car, though, was a shady-looking one. The kind I'd expect to pre-pump and then skip out on paying. It was a piece. An old black pickup, victim to merciless rust. It had this huge dent on the driver's side and a busted headlight. Looked like the asshole had driven into a tree. Didn't have a license plate either. I decided not to authorize him if he tried to prepay. Having no license plate was just cause enough. And I went back to writing and texting and basically doing nothing. When I finally got up to start sweeping the place, I'd forgotten about that sketchy pickup. That is, until I saw it, still sitting with its engine rumbling at pump 4. In hindsight, the whole thing seemed really shady, but at the time, I was just confused. The guy had never gotten gas at all, nor had he come in for smokes or a drink or anything. So, taking the bucket of washer fluid in hand, so it looked like I had some reason to go outside, I opened the door. And as soon as I did, the engine roared and rubber squealed. I was baffled as this guy tore out of the parking lot. A cigarette flew out of his window and exploded in orange sparks against the pavement. He was down the street in a matter of seconds. I went over to the cigarette butt and stomped it out. It wasn't really anywhere near the gas pumps, but I felt a little paranoid anyway. For a while, I thought about the truck. I asked Mike about it and he texted back, suggesting that maybe the guy was scoping the place out with intent to rob it. "Yeah, probably. I'll tell my boss in the morning," was my response. I've never been afraid of holdups. I'd gladly hand over however much cash I had in the drawer. Nothing worth getting shot over, and corporate can suck it. Nonplussed, I swept inside, stocked the cooler, counted cigarettes, and still had 4 hours to kill. Usually it gets unbearably slow around 2:30, but it had been slow as hell even before then. I did a routine walk around the store, just to check on everything. My writer's block was still weighing heavily on me, and Mike was getting slower with his responses. I noticed at some point that my cash register screen had the out-of-paper symbol lit up for the pump 4, which was weird because I don't remember anyone stopping to fuel at that pump in a while. But then again, a lot of people come and go when I'm doing the cooler and I don't notice. Taking the pump keys and a new roll of paper, I went outside. Nice night. I decided to have a smoke break once this was taken care of. I remember thinking that was because I vividly recalled the feeling of a cosmic coincidence that overcame me when I approached the pump. I thought they were blue L&Ms at first, just by the color of the box. But when I took the cigarettes down from on top of the pump, I was taken aback to find no brand name, no design, no disclaimer, no barcode, no serial number, absolutely nothing. But they hadn't been opened. And by that, I mean that the box still had the plastic wrapping on it. I remember thinking, are these even cigarettes? But I stock about 100 of these fuckers every night, and they felt like a box of cigarettes to me. More curious than anything, I opened them up and checked. Sure enough, they were cigarettes. Pretty normal looking too. Now, I was 18, mind you. Free smokes were a thing of celebration, a lucky find, not something considered sketchy or even that unusual. Someone left them here, I'd reasoned, and they're probably some foreign brand. Shit, or it was some printing fuck-up. Either way, the seal hadn't been broken, so I figured they couldn't be tampered with. Same rule as a beer, right? And for that matter, having any kind of plastic wrapping at all made them authentic, with my logic. I'm sure by now you've deduced that there was something fucked up about these smokes. Why else would I be making a case for my decision to smoke one? You'd be right. So, I smoked one. Half of one. It tasted kind of metallic, so I didn't finish it. I ashed the thing and stood outside for a long time. My headache was totally gone. I remember staring at the dumpster for a long time before thinking I was really tired and kind of like I was going to fall. In that moment, I saw nothing wrong or strange with sitting down. Then, lying down on my side, I felt really weird, but I remember that I didn't think there was anything wrong at all. Before I go any further, I'll say that my girlfriend has always been terrified of the dark. She says that she sees stuff in the dark and her mind makes it into all sorts of scary faces and figures and what have you. In contrast, I've always been the opposite, especially since she confided this in me. If I see something I can't identify, I check it out. I get closer. I don't do that as much anymore. I remember lying there, just thinking about shit. Weird shit. Like Wilt from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends drinking a purple Slurpee. And of course, in that moment, that was totally normal. Eventually, I saw something by the dumpster. And looking back, details are very blurred. Like when you try to visualize what you saw during a dream. But whatever I saw, I remember thinking that it shouldn't be over there. I don't know why that was the thought, but it was. I kept looking at it, thinking about what it could be. From my position, It looked a lot like a wilting fern. I finally got up. My head spun, and I started to take in how fucked up I was. Shit, I'm at work, I realized. I didn't attribute the feeling to the cigarettes at the time. I just freaked out. I wanted to feel normal, and across the parking lot, by the dumpster, I still saw that fern-looking thing. My whole perception of the thing changed in one single moment, when it moved. And huge, shiny black eyes fell upon me. I remember thinking about my girlfriend. I remember thinking how illogical it would be to run inside, despite how utterly terrified I was in that moment. I should get closer. I should see what this thing is. That idea didn't last long. The thing, whatever it was, I still don't know, put its hands over its big, black eyes. I remember being particularly shocked by its fingernails, long, yellow, and twisted. When I still held my ground, that's when it screamed. It opened its big, toothless mouth far wider than I've ever seen a mouth open, and it made this pathetic wailing sound. It sounded like it was being tortured. Now, I was scared. I ran back inside the store and promptly locked the door. I didn't know what to do. I was still feeling really fucked up. Nothing was staying still. I could hear my heart beating in my ears. I'm gonna die from fear, I remember thinking. It's in your head. It's a bad trip. You got drugged. You're having a bad trip. You're at work. Get your shit together. There was a woman at the counter, and she nearly made me shit myself. Half her face hung dead, sagging, expressionless with one eye looking ready to roll out. The other half was contoured with anger. I was ready to cry out and make a run for my car, but I realized, with unimaginable shame and sorrow, that she was a stroke victim, or something of the sort. I think, at the time, I thought she had a birth defect or something. Whatever I thought, I felt horrible, and mortified by the way I was thinking and acting. This is some strong shit I'm on, I thought. I'm sorry, I said to her. Can I help you with anything? And I recall, my words sort of hung in my ears after I said them. She said something in a broken voice, and I asked her to repeat herself. She said it again, clearer. Fuck you. I remember feeling like shit. I must have offended her or kept her waiting or both. I'm really sorry. I was taking out the Fuck you. She said it even clearer that time, and the muscles in the half of her face I presumed non-functional twitched into life. She twisted her head to look at me, twisted it at an impossible angle, and started screaming it. Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! For what felt like far too long. So long the words began to lose meaning and definition, just loud screeches. At one point, as I cowered by the door I'd locked, I couldn't distinguish words at all. I closed my eyes, unwilling to look at her, and the screaming continued. Even once I opened my eyes and found her absent. The distorted curses kept coming, until they blended into a sound like microphone feedback. Eventually, it stopped, leaving me sitting against the door with a ringing in my ears. This is all some kind of dream, a trip. I'm on a bad trip. I kept telling myself shit like that when I thought to dial the police or make a run for it. I went to the bathroom and washed off. I felt a little bit better. I could see my reflection rippling like the mirror was a standing wall of liquid. Feeling less shaken, I returned to the counter. I paced for a while, occasionally glancing out the window. I was paranoid as hell. Everything would set me off. The air turning on, the lotto machine making its usual beeping sounds, even the quiet sounds of the building settling. It was all making me twitch and panic. I didn't want to reflect or think about it, any of it. I just paced. There was this awful smell that had overcome me, too, like dog shit and rotting fruit. It was driving me crazy, and I wasn't sure if it was even there or not. All my other senses had proved unreliable. But I did smell something, and I traced it to a plastic grocery bag, from Meyer, I think, stuffed underneath the coffee maker. It smelled awful. Of course, I opened the damn thing, and it took me a second to process what it was. Teeth. Bloody, rotten, black and yellow teeth. A big wad of them, all stuck together with thick strings of tar. And this is when I started to fear for my life, because it was right then when this trip started to affect me physically. I remember feeling a hot, wet hand grab the back of my head with unbelievable force and push my face into the paper bag. The smell was unbearable, and the terror that embodied me had no outlet. I quickly started swinging wildly. The bag was pushed into my face from the front, too, and I was losing air. I let out a scream for the first time, and I was released. Still swinging like a madman, I fell into the newspaper rack. I fought with the bag on my head for a minute before I got it off. The fluorescent lights were blinding. I spat out mushy, black teeth, realized they had been into my mouth, and immediately vomited into the bag. Then, I didn't use logic or reason. I went into the drink cooler, barricaded the door with unopened crates of Pepsi. I grabbed a Monster and drank about half to get that god-awful taste out of my mouth. Then I sit with my back to the wall, staring at the door, refusing to take my eyes off it, refusing to blink. The voices started somewhere in there. I could hear them, but not with my ears, like they were in my head. But I could still hear them. I could never explain this part well when I tell people this story. They weren't saying anything, and they were mostly whispers. The visual that came to my mind when I heard them was a room of murmuring heroin addicts with bone-tight skin and yellow eyes, like lemurs. It was a powerful image, too. I tried to shake this picture as soon as it formed. I drank more Monster. I sat there for what felt like an hour. I rocked back and forth, ignoring the voices. And this is the part that still fucks me up to think about it. When I was sobbing in there, I took a moment to close my eyes. When I opened them, I saw myself sitting against the door to the cooler across from me. The thing looked just like me, but was barefoot, and it wore a wide smile. It had no eyes or nose. It got on all fours and ran at me. I tried to shield myself, but the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, and I felt more pressure on my head than actual pain. And I vomited again. This time blood and bile, mostly. I was alone in the cooler now. I lay there for a while before I managed to get up and take in the silence, the normality. Was it over? I felt more sober. I went to the bathroom again and checked my reflection. I looked like shit. Puke stained my collared shirt and blood was smeared on my face. My eyes were pink and watery, sitting in purple cradles. I washed off again, and again felt better. I returned to the store and took took in the newspaper-strewn floor. I didn't see the bag of teeth, though, looking back. I didn't think to look for it at the time. I never found it either. It was only later when I remembered it. I checked my phone. No new messages. It's kind of weird. I expected a few from Mike, wondering what I was doing. After I cleaned up the newspapers, which were yesterday's anyway, I felt my phone vibrate. "Alright, well, be careful." I stared at it. He was responding to my last text, the one I sent hours ago. I looked at the clock to see just how long it had been, and I nearly dropped the stack of papers in my hand. 2:39. That was impossible. Completely fucking impossible. 9 minutes? That all happened in 9 minutes? No fucking way. I tried to wrap my head around this as I cleaned up the vomit and blood in the store and the cooler. I felt okay, though. I felt fine, really. Kinda congested, but that's all. And from there, everything seemed normal. Eventually, I unlocked the door, but it was a tough decision. I told Mike about it all, and at first he laughed at me. Then when I brought up the cigarettes, he told me what I was already thinking, that they were laced with something. And I wanted to agree with him, but there was so much that argued that. The clarity of the whole experience, the plastic wrapping on the cigarettes. And later that day, my boss called, asking if I knew anything about why the cameras shut off around 1 a.m, around when that truck pulled up. I don't know. I have no fucking clue. The realist in me is prevailing. I need to know one way or another. Did it happen? Or didn't it? I survived it, whatever it was. You'd expect me to throw those smokes out on the highway, but I didn't. I still have them. I have the pack right here, next to my laptop, and that's why I'm writing this. I need advice. I need help. I have a strong desire to find out. I mean, I survived it once. If I smoked one, with a friend, in my own room, then I'd know. Then maybe I'll have some peace. They're calling to me. Those voices. I hear them some nights, in my dreams. I hear them. What should I do? And this is what happened next. I've been up for 3 nights. Energy shots and cold showers help. I don't want to sleep. It's been much worse lately. The dreams and the voices. I won't smoke any more of those things, I've decided. I need answers first. And I need these maddening voices and whispers to stop barraging my nights. I have to listen to music, TV, something at all times, or I start to hear them. So far, I've only told Mike about what happened. "Why didn't you call the police?" Mike had asked me. I wasn't exactly thinking straight. He still thinks I'm brainless for not having dialed 911, but I hold to the belief that even if I had thought to during that time I spent bathing in madness, the phone probably would have screamed at me, or God knows what. Well, what about patrol cars? At my station, there's always a couple cops hanging around. You're not listening to me. This happened in a span of 10 minutes. No matter how many times I tried to explain it, he just never seemed to grasp the absolute terror I had suffered through. So, I don't confide in anyone. I research. I follow every lead I get, though I haven't found many. Even if it was a drug that caused all of this, it doesn't explain away everything. Why it's still affecting me. And then there's the cameras. They didn't capture any of my experience. My boss said they shut off. I had to see for myself. Thus begins my descent into psychosis. I'm well aware. After a lot of persuading, my boss, former boss now, let me take a look at the tapes. And sure enough, right as that truck pulls into the parking lot, the camera distorts, statics, and then cuts to a blue screen. It resumes at 2:39. There are a lot of ways to trick cameras, I've learned. They could have used a jammer, this little device that can block wireless signals. But the cameras at Sunshine America are wired, and everything they record is fed right into the back room, my boss's office. And who exactly are they? Who do I think is responsible for all this? That's the question I've been at a complete loss to answer. Whoever, or dare I say, whatever, did this had no license plate, and I never got a look at them. I was ready to give up, subject myself to the maddening dreams and the relentless whispers. Dreary white noise, when I stumbled upon something 3 nights ago. Onion Master. I wrote off the username as nonsense until I read a few of his articles, which to me came off as conspiracy theories. But at this point, I'm reading anything I might have even a sliver of information I can use. Turns out, he's well versed in this thing called Tor, the onion router, which provides internet anonymity. Onion Master had a ton of articles, blogs, and videos about something called the deep web. From what I understand, the visible web, what I've been using to do all this research on things unknown, is only what we can easily access. The deep web is the underside of the iceberg we call the internet, and Google and Bing can't delve into the abyssal waters. What's down there, under the water? From what I've found, there are databases, city records, archives, stuff that wouldn't need to be accessed practically. But it's what grows in the darkness that got me looking into the deep web. Weapons, drugs, human trafficking, hitmen for hire. If you thought there was some fucked up porn that you could get to just by searching Google, Jesus, some of this shit, the pedophiles and sadists rejoice. The Silk Road got my attention for a moment. Onion Master described it as the Amazon.com of illegal substances, but it was something else that pulled me in even deeper. And before I go on, let me say that I didn't browse through any of this. The deep web doesn't work like that. You need to know where you're going before you go there, and for that reason, it initially seemed like a dead end. After all, searching the depths of the ocean, looking for one bit of treasure is pointless if you don't have coordinates. My coordinates were sent to me. I was getting out of another icy shower around 2 a.m. I remember feeling a sort of dizziness overtake me, and I had to sit down on the edge of the bathtub. I was having trouble breathing. This kind of thing happened to me once in a while. Ever since I smoked the Blue King, I'd usually start to hear whispering, or start smelling rotten fruit. That didn't happen this time, though. Something far more horrible came for me. It was crouched in the corner, behind the door. It looked like me. Barefoot, with no face, no features, except for that thin smile that stretched from ear to ear. When I saw it, I don't know how to put it into words. A part of me was almost excited. Excited to see it in existence, not just a blurred memory. This part of me was insignificant when compared to the pure terror that overtook me in that moment. Claustrophobia set in as I realized I was cornered. I could have died as soon as it got its hands on me. Maybe that would have been too merciful, now that I look back on the bathroom incident. It came for me, though. I had nowhere to go, and I don't think I truly believed it could touch me. But it did. The thing grabbed my shoulders, pushed me into the bathtub. When it leaned in, all I could see was the sickly canvas of flesh where its face, my face, should have been. And it stunk. Christ, it was like chemicals. My warped reflection whispered to me 3 words before it vanished without a trace. In a voice like my own, twisted with a strange mix of both agony and happiness, it whispered to me, "God must die." I ran to my closet as soon as it had vanished, and I stayed there for what felt like hours. I know, I was no better than a frightened child. It was the only place I felt safe. I couldn't think straight for a long time after that. Whatever that thing was, I'd seen it before, in the cooler at the gas station. But this was different. There's no way anything from that cigarette was still in my system. This was something more than a drug. This was something tainted, something evil that I'd brought forth. When, eventually, pure exhaustion overtook me, I dreamt horrible visions. I was in a warehouse where headless men and women dangled from chains, and I kept seeing some thin, wide-eyed entity in my peripheral vision. To this day, I can't explain that, whatever that thing was. I never got a good look at it, just more madness. That's all it was. This nightmare seemed to drag on and on and on, and when I finally awoke in my closet, my head was swimming. I checked my phone and found, with horror, that it had been less than 10 minutes since I'd taken my shower. That was the worst part of it. Of all of it. No matter what I'd see, hear, or smell, nothing was as god-awful as knowing that there was no quick way to suffer through it. When I found the courage to exit my little haven, I found something that made me want to go right back in and pray, yet again, for an end to all this. My computer monitor was flashing from a pure blue screen to some sort of black page covered with blocks of unstructured white text. It didn't look like a website or a document. It looked like something you'd find on the deep web. The text, I noticed as I shakily took a seat, was all either backwards, upside down, or in some language with characters I couldn't decipher. But a good amount was in English. I tried to scroll down, but the lag was horrible. The picture that eventually loaded on my screen is one that truly hammered the final nail into my sanity's coffin. It was a poor resolution image of a warehouse. People, headless people, hung from chains. And there, in the center of the picture, I stood, faceless, with a wide smile. Beneath the image were the words, in upside-down text, "God must die.